Few anime have ever hit harder than One Punch Man. When it first aired, it became an overnight sensation among weebs the world over, and with a strong presence on Hulu and Netflix, it even managed to poke into the mainstream, albeit briefly, when Bill Burr said a thing about it on Twitter and a bunch of otaku collectively lost their minds. Also, I've heard from somewhat reliable sources that on Hulu it outperformed Law & Order for a while, which is a pretty big deal. But it's not hard to figure out why. Not only did One Punch Man have a hilarious, attention-grabbing premise, but it executed on it with panache. Across 12 episodes, One Punch Man's anime adaptation delivered consistently stunning fight animation and uproarious visual comedy that ranks among the best in the business. Thanks to that high level of quality, despite having only a single season under its belt, the show has maintained unusually high interest from its fans over the last 3 years and managed to stay relevant in the discourse around anime. With that kind of hype behind the show, a sequel series was both inevitable and hotly anticipated. So naturally, when a proper trailer for the second season finally dropped a few days ago, after months of hype and teases, the reaction from the internet was a loud and immediate sigh of disappointment.
You were the chosen one! It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them!
Just as a quick refresher, here's what the trailer released a month before the first season looked like. A few people have asked me to do a full analysis of this Season 2 trailer, but you've got eyes, you can see why it's bad for yourself. Gone entirely is the dynamic camera work that made the first series so exciting. Every shot is bland and static, framed with the intent of showing action with the least animation possible, as opposed to, for artistic effect. And on the subject of effects, the water, explosions, lightning, and lasers that we see in this trailer look cheap and fake as hell. And let's not even get started on all the random black screens. But worst of all, the characters all just look off. Even ignoring the change in art style that gives us extra shiny Genos and a weird gradient coloring on every other character, which some will like as a matter of taste, I personally think it looks awful, the way the characters move just feels wrong. When they talk, it's entirely through lip flaps on totally static faces, where the original series strove to give characters unique, entertaining expressions everywhere it could. And the action animation is all stiff, floaty, and artificial, when it's animated at all. They can't even get a simple jump to look right. At the end of the trailer, Saitama just sort of flies off the building he's sitting in. It's bizarrely awful. And to be fair, One Punch Man Season 1 did take its share of shortcuts too. I'm sure you could cut together a 2-minute trailer of less than stellar looking shots from that series, but why would you, especially if you're trying to sell it to people? The whole point of a trailer is to show off some of the best, most impressive parts of a work in order to entice people to watch it. And if this is the best One Punch Man Season 2 has to offer, frankly, I don't even want to see it at its worst. We have less than 20 days to go until this new season airs, so barring the possibility that this is some elaborate early April Fool's prank, what we're seeing now is very close to what we're gonna get. A disappointment, at least from an animation standpoint. This arc of the manga is really good, so the story might save it to an extent, but you can read the whole manga on the Shonen Jump app for $3 a month, and it's got better art and arguably better animation in points than this trailer, so I'd recommend that instead, because it's going to be great instead of just okay. Still, this all leaves an important question dangling in the air. What the hiffle happened? How did one of the best looking modern anime turn into this? Well, if you knew where to look, the writing was on the wall well over a year ago. In September 2017, it was announced that JC Staff would be taking over production of the series from Madhouse, and a lot of people, myself included, immediately started shifting toward, at best, cautious optimism. Now, it's tempting to speculate that One Punch Man's producers handed it off to an inferior studio to save a bit of cash on the production, knowing that it will make money no matter what they do. I know it's tempting because I speculated that exact thing when I heard the news a year and a half ago, and to be honest, I was super wrong. Fact is, animation budgets are pretty consistent throughout the industry, and Madhouse's work on One Punch Man wasn't unusually expensive at all. JC Staff is probably working with a similar amount of money, and if they've run into production problems, they may have gone over budget even. As Hi My Name is Chair pointed out on Twitter, the real reason for the change is almost certainly a scheduling conflict, but we'll get to that in a second. Before we do, it's also important to note that painting JC Staff as an inherently inferior studio isn't really fair to them or realistic either. They've made plenty of great shows like Toradora, Planet With, and Food Wars. Good corporate policies can facilitate the production of more consistently good anime, and good workplace culture can keep talent around. Bones, Kyoto Animation, and Ufotable are all testaments to that. But ultimately, anime is not made by studios. Anime is made at studios by artists. And great artists working on a good schedule will produce great work no matter where they are. One Punch Man was as good as it was not because of Madhouse, but because of its director, Shingo Natsume, an industry veteran who took charge of the incomprehensibly gorgeous Space Dandy. With his talent and connections, Natsume took a very average animation budget and stretched it to its limit and beyond. If you want to know more, there's a link in the doobly-doo to a great video about his work on One Punch Man by Canipa. Very long story short though, the talent that Natsume brought to the table was integral to One Punch Man's success, and I'm sure that the producers knew that and wanted to bring him back. But more than that, they wanted a sequel out this year. And since Natsume's team was busy making Boogie Pop and others, instead of waiting for him to come back and make One Punch Man 2 the right way later, they decided to let Chikara Sakurai, whose sole other directing credit, Majimoji Rurumo, is aggressively mediocre, make it the wrong way now. This is the anime equivalent of Sony passing the Spider-Man franchise from Sam Raimi to Mark Webb. It makes little sense from an artistic standpoint, but a lot of sense from a business one. One Punch Man is hot right now, but who's to say that it will stay that way if people have to wait another year or two for a sequel? People want more One Punch Man now, and the story's already there in the manga, just have someone else animate it. I wish I could say this was a story unique to One Punch Man, but it's really not. Just this winter, we got a second season of 2017's cult hit gacha game adaptation Kemono Friends, which has been getting near constant heat from its fanbase since it was announced that a new studio would be taking over from Yaoyorozu, and that the show's director, Tatsuki, whose vision basically defined it, had been given the boot. See, the niche fanbase of Kemono Friends is in love with the story of Kaban and Serval's quest to uncover the truth about their world, but they're equally in love with the story of one scrappy anime director taking a bland mobile game that nobody cared about and turning it into a surprisingly great show against all odds. So, naturally enough, when the producers who initially left Kemono Friends to die suddenly moved to capitalize on its unexpected success by firing the guy who saved it, those fans were not pleased. Some harassed the new studio, Tomasan, which don't do that ever, but more simply gave up hope for the new season and committed to never watching it. Going by votes on Crunchyroll and MAL numbers, Kemono Friends Season 2 has a fraction of the viewership that the first season enjoyed. And despite some reviews which suggest that it's at least decent, full disclosure, I haven't watched it myself yet, it seems unlikely that it will ever get the same enthusiastic word of mouth that its predecessor did. Kemono Friends is likely to flop because of that decision, but it should probably be treated as an exception. Most series fandoms just don't have that level of attachment to the specific creators behind the anime they like. Aside from Sakuga scholars, the majority of even hardcore anime fans in the West tend to be aware at most of the main studio behind a show, and maybe the director or the author if the source material is popular enough. And more casual fans don't even look that closely. I mean, do you think Bill Burr even knows what a madhouse is? Do you think he cares about Shingo Natsume? Until this week, there hasn't been that much controversy around One Punch Man staff changes. And even now, most people who were gonna watch the show are still gonna watch at least the first episode in spite of this trailer. And even with weebs up in arms about the animation downgrade on Twitter, Reddit, and YouTube, I genuinely don't know if general audiences will care. Dragon Ball Super had some super rough animation, especially when it first started, yet it was one of the most watched anime out there. OG Pokemon isn't exactly a looker, but it was the most popular TV show on the whole planet for a couple years there. There are a lot of people who appreciate Sakuga when they see it, but can easily do without it as long as the story's good and the fights are hype. And having read the manga, the story is good, the fights are hype. A lot of folks will be happy enough with that, and happy to have it now instead of in 2 years. One Punch Man got where it is today by being one of the best shows on the market, but it could very well stay where it is by just continuing to exist. A lot of once great things do, and that's a depressing thought, especially if you loved what those great things were, but nobody on the production committee for this show is going to be sad so long as they keep making money. They'll just look at a spreadsheet of ratings, merch sales, and other metrics, pat themselves on the back for prioritizing timeliness over quality, and order another season for 2021, if they don't already have an order in place for 2020. We'll probably never stop things like this from happening to the anime and other large-scale artworks that we love, not so long as their main mechanism for justifying their own existence is turning some kind of profit, anyway. But maybe we can make it a little harder for the people in charge to get away with. The anime community in general is prone to talking about shows primarily in terms of the companies that made them. I'm as guilty of this as anybody. It's a lot simpler and easier to talk about, say, JoJo as a David Productions anime than it is to say it's an anime made by Naokatsu Suda, Kenichi Suzuki, Yuta Takamura, Yoshikazu Iwanami. I could keep going for a while here, that's kind of the point. It takes a lot of people to make any form of commercial art, and if we, as the community that consumes that art, just make a point of mentioning more of those people alongside that art more often, that will create more of a connection between them and it in the minds of both us and the casual observers watching, and it will make it a bit harder to separate them from their work. And on the other hand, if you spend a lot of time digging through Sakugaboru, MAL, or ANN and learning about all the people who made the anime that you really love, that can be an excellent way to find new shows that you could also love. It's kind of a win-win scenario if you can make the time for it, which I'll be the first to admit is hard. For my part, on top of doing that, I'm going to make an effort to revamp the research pipeline for my videos and put more production info into at least my biggest ones, although, and I realize the irony in saying this, I will not be able to figure out what changes I need to make immediately while keeping up with my current weekly schedule, but that's a much larger conversation that I've been meaning to have with you guys for a while. We'll figure that out soon, hopefully. Also, I might need some help from the Sakuga community to actually implement those changes, so this will be a gradual shift, but I think it's an important one to make. Because, frankly speaking, I'd like to see less anime trailers like this one, and at the very least, if I do see another one, I'd like to see more people aware of how it turned out the way it did. If you guys agree, I've got some links in the doobly-doo to some good sources that will help you appreciate One Punch Man a little bit more. To shake things up a bit, let me know in the comments below who your favorite animators are and what series or movies highlight their best work. And if you don't have a favorite, maybe you could peruse the comments to find one. Either way, while you're down there, there's also some buttons you can click if you feel like it. You've been on YouTube for more than 5 minutes, you know the ones. Thanks, I really appreciate it. Also, sorry I sound weird, I am just fighting off a really bad cold. I'm Geoff Thew, professional shitbag, signing out from my mother's basement.